I've mentioned Woodford Academy on this channel before, and the other day I decided to go back there for a book event. Because the house belonged at one time to a member of the moneyed Fairfax family and was then a school, it has a lot of interesting books in its archives, and some of those books were on display. A few were even stamped Woodford Academy. This looks like a first edition of Dorothea McKellar's poetry collection, The Closed Door, containing I Love a Sunburnt Country, and it was a gift from the wife of the well-known Antarctic explorer Tannen Edgeworth David, who lived in Woodford towards the end of his life. This is a Greek grammar belonging to and signed by John McCannamy, Woodford Academy's headmaster. As well as the Academy's collection, the event featured a couple of bookstalls set up by two local bookshops I visited on a previous episode, the Good Earth Bookshop and Blue Dragon Books. And one of the books was this gorgeous old plant catalogue.
Yeah, and so it gave you it basically gives you all the growing conditions and where they're available from. But these pictures were originally just printed in black and white, and then they're all hand-coloured.
After I went to the Woodford Academy, it occurred to me that I've managed to collect a bunch of books that are both beautiful and significant in some way. And I thought I'd talk about them. Most of my books I have because I just love reading them over and over again, and I value them for their content. But some of my books are valuable in other ways. For instance, this limited edition boxed copy of Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. It is such a beautiful book, so elegant, and it's full of these lovely plates. This 1950s edition of Don Quixote is really nice too. It also has these lovely plates. It's from the Folio Society. And there's this really cute 1920s edition of Vanity Fair with some amazing colour plates in it. Then there are these three antique books which have beautiful engravings in them. This one I particularly love because it feels so good to hold because of its size and this lovely worn leather binding. It's actually a collection of poetry by people like Alexander Pope, and it was published in 1775, and it's dedicated to the actor David Garrick, and it's just got the most beautiful engravings in it. Then there's this, the 22nd volume of an ecclesiastical history that was published in 1777. And I love this partly because of this beautiful engraving, and partly because on the title page we've got markings from various people who've owned it, including a stamp from St. Francis Xavier's College, Nova Scotia in Antigonish, and this fabulous ex libris from Dominici Capo, which I think is the head of the Dominicans. Anyway, really, really classy. I also love this 1842 edition of the Mirror magazine. I love it partly because of the spectacular engravings, like it's all the way through, like spectacular, and partly because a previous owner, whose name I can't quite make out, has written on the front page here, 1869 they owned this, but yeah, I'm not sure who it was. None of these are my favourite books in the world, but I love them as objects. One book I do love as an object and as a favourite read is this 1878 edition of 20 Years After by Alexander Dumas. It's the sequel to The Three Musketeers. It's my favourite Three Musketeers book. I used to read it a lot, not so much anymore, but a lot when I was young. It had a big influence, The Three Musketeers. And I just love this edition with its beautiful plates. The same goes for this first edition of The Name of the Rose by Umberto Eco. I bought this book when it first came out because I was doing a course at Sydney University that year called From Heresy to Witchcraft with John O'Ward, whom I've mentioned before on this channel. I introduced him to this book. I told him it contains just about everything that we've covered in the course. And I thought it was a brilliant book. And I read it over and over again, and it's a really beautiful looking book as well. This book is The Oaken Heart by Marjorie Allingham. It's a 1959 edition. It's not particularly important to me, except that my mother actually gave it to me, but there are two interesting things about it. One is that it has a stamp in it from the Cobar Municipal Adult Library, which I'm guessing meant something slightly different then from what it possibly means now, but also that it has the most unbelievable number of names written in the front of it. And at first I thought it had something to do with the library, but now after a second look, I'm thinking maybe not, maybe it's something else. I mean, when you look at these names, it's not just names. There's like James, I think Hedden, retired practitioner. Charlotte Smith, housewife. Olive Neville, housewife. And then like down here, shopkeeper. Edith Orr, I think, shopkeeper. Western something, Royal Observer Corps. And then over here, I really like this. There's I.F. Moore, headmistress of Tolleshuant Darcy School. Edward Ferrell, recorder of Newbury, Commander, Royal Naval Volunteer Reserve. I mean, what is this book? Is it a presentation book? Is it? I don't know. It's so interesting. This is my edition of The Complete Sherlock Holmes. I always adored Sherlock Holmes. I always have. I used to read these stories over and over and over again when I was younger. It's not a particularly special volume. The cover got so torn and everything from my reading it that I had to throw it away. It's a double day. I don't even know what date it is. But the special thing about this volume is that I took it to a Comic-Con and I got Benedict Cumberbatch to sign the first page. For those of you who don't know, Benedict Cumberbatch has been one of the actors portraying Sherlock Holmes. Here's another beautiful book and another inscription. This is a first edition Leviathan by Scott Westerfield, and I know Scott from various meetings of young adult authors in the past, and he was kind enough to sign this and inscribe it to my daughter. And I tell you, this is the most beautiful book. I mean, the maps and the pictures, like there's the inscription, and then we've got all these gorgeous pictures, and it feels so heavy, and it's a beautiful book. And here's another beautiful book with my daughter's name written in it, The Inimitable Possum Magic, inscribed by both the author Mem Fox and illustrator Julie Vivas in Adelaide. I think it was at a Children's Book Council presentation. Julie's daughter actually helped me to publish one of my picture books because she became a publisher. This is also a very important book, even though it doesn't look like it. It's a very simple Penguin edition of For Whom the Bell Tolls, published in 1955, but it was given to me by my agent, who was also the agent of Christopher Koch, the author of books like The Year of Living Dangerously, Lost Voices, Out of Ireland, The Memory Room, books like that. And this book was his book, and it's signed C. Koch, London 55, and for that reason this book is very important to me. This book is even more important to me. It's The Nameless Day by the late lamented Sarah Douglas. She sent me this book in 2000 after we'd appeared together at the Sydney Writers' Festival, and we'd been on a panel, and I'd been horrified to learn that she tweaked her historical facts to suit her story. And I think my horror must have really amused her, because she sent me this book afterwards. And then here she says, Dear Catherine, I thought of our conversation at the SWF constantly while writing this book, and as I wrote, my grin became eviler and eviler. I've created such carnage among the army of historical facts. As a fellow manipulator of Dominican characters, I hope you enjoy the carnage. With my best regards, Sarah Douglas. P.S. Please note my desperate attempts to justify my factual slaughter in my author's notes. I've already mentioned Mr. Pickwick's in Katoomba as a good place to pick up rare and interesting books. But if you're in the Blue Mountains, another place to check out is the Victory Theatre Antique Centre in Blackheath. I've shown you the outside of Victory Theatre Antiques before, but not the inside, which is amazing. 2 floors of magical clutter, so many stalls, and so many interesting things. Including this Children's Book Council of Australia poster from 1995. And, of course, a lot of books. Some modern, some not so modern. Some apparently quite rare. Some apparently quite valuable. And some really quite odd, though perhaps I should say, catering to a niche audience. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me on this little journey into library land, which has actually prompted me to tackle Vanity Fair again. So I guess until next time, happy reading.